Hello, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate all you fellows leaving me comments and your interest in what we're doing here. Uh, I wanted to say that before I get on with any of this. Uh, there's a debate sometimes about who has the best people on their channel, and I would say that it's me. Yeah, I think I got the best guys that would ever be following anybody on YouTube. Uh, Fellas, you know who you are, and it's amazing the knowledge you guys carry and that you share with me. And I'm always impressed. So, anyway, I had a question directed to me about the plenum on this intake, and we're going to talk about that as soon as I can see. It looks like it's knife edged, and I've mentioned this a couple times. I cut the divider down, which would be fine if you're going to just put the carburetor on without a spacer or a small 1/4 inch spacer, but I usually use something like this. So, and also we're going to be trying this too, guys. This seems like it works pretty well, but most of the time with a little dual plane, this has worked out. Now, you gotta keep in mind, like I said before, what compression and things like that your motor is. So I'm always low compression because we use stock stuff. Don't go by how this is cut back here, because I was experimenting getting the air back here, and to do so I had to cut this back where I can get back in this area. So this is very good back in here on this rear of the intake. The front of the intake, where I have this little hole here, is not so good. This is actually a dead runner. There's very little air comes out when I test that. So yeah, guys, this is from getting the plenum straight. This had way too much meat up underneath here, and I'm trying to get this all straight. So that's where this little thin divider comes in. Now, a lot of times on an aftermarket intake, you'll see the plenum will dip over and the wall will be in back of the plenum right here. I'd rather have this straight, where it comes straight down and then back. So I arched the back here too, as you can see. And I'm also rounding this way back. I cut this back here, and I'm rounding it back around the plenum so the air can easily get around here. So that's what's taking so much time with that. I don't care for how it's working up this part here. So when I get to here, I may have to either do my little trick with the I bought a belt for a belt sander, and I'll put that through over here, bring it around through the port here, and move it back and forth across this area here. But this isn't real thick here, but it goes to a high peak, so it's interfering with how the air wants to go into this other runner. So once I smooth this out, if this doesn't pick up, then I may be cutting this completely out here and welding it or epoxying a new design. We'll see how that goes. I don't want to go crazy trying to get the most out of this thing, but I want it to work where it's pretty equal as far as the air, as equal as I can get it. To my standards, at least, guys. But what I wanted to show you was this. Now, this is not knife cut. Like I said, this is what I wound up with because I wanted to get it straight here. And also, I wanted as much volume in the plenum. So, when I'm finished with all this nonsense here, I'll probably, well, I might even raise this back up, the divider. If nothing else, I'll probably at least round it in and make this a little bit wider here. We'll see how that goes. Now, one thing I will say, I've done heads where I've wound up with this knife edge, and I've had people say to me, that's not good like that. Actually, the guy on the dyno told me that was very bad, and he does heads, and he's a performance guy. But the problem lies in opinionated statements, because not that I recommend doing this, making a knife edge, but it surely didn't show up on power, because it was on a LS 5.3 that made 504 horsepower with a combination that Rick Holdner said was impossible to do with that. So he said it was impossible, that he had tested that intake that we used and it did not make any power. So that's what I base some things on. So if we made over 500 horsepower and somebody that tests all the time doesn't make that horsepower, and you're talking about two different dynos. I'm not getting caught up into that, guys. You know how I feel about that. This is just a rule of thumb type thing speaking here that I'm going by. So it's like this here. Would this make more power? I would say no. Knife edging. But will it kill power? I haven't seen where it's killed power. So I wouldn't recommend doing it, but I wouldn't say if you wound up with a knife-edged runner on a head or an intake, in my opinion, I wouldn't sweat it, even though I really don't like it knife-edged. Now, some guys would knife-edge on purpose. That was a hot thing 10 years ago, and people were actually doing that on purpose. Well, I guess some of the cars ran okay, so how much could it have hurt? But just think about what the air is doing. You're slicing the air, or if it was rounded, the air is going around. So that has a matter of opinion too. The air can easily hit this and go to either side. It's like slicing in the air, if you want to refer to it like that. Or if it was rounded, it would be rounding on each side. So that's just something there that's up for opinion, I think, unless somebody could actually prove otherwise on a running vehicle. But here's what I wanted to go with, fellas, is this. Before I got so far off my train of thought. Now, I showed you guys this spacer. So, if I was to use this spacer here, I would not want to actually cut this down here. On a smaller spacer such as this, I think it might help a little bit because you're getting kind of a cross draft between the two in the plenum. So that's just how I look at it. It doesn't mean that I'm right about that. But here's the thing. If you use a 4-hole like this, losing my train of thought again, guys, then, in my opinion, this is lining the barrels up on the carburetor, and this plenum divider doesn't have a whole lot of say-so in a way of matter of speaking. That's how I look at it, because if you look, well, this kind of takes away from that. So that's one of my theories on that. And this is, like I said, this has worked really good for us on the other dual plane. Now on this one here, it becomes a different scenario, right guys? Then we're back to what we're talking about with the divider here. So, hello. These are just things that, well, on one hand, it's a kind of opinionated. On another hand, you'll have guys that's really tested how air moves, and they'll have their theories. But how much does it help or hurt when you have it on a running vehicle? Now, one thing we have to think about is that we're testing blowing the air in, when on a manifold it's being pulled through. And somebody would say, same scenario, Terry. Well, it is in one way looking at it, and then there's another way looking at it. So we're forcing the air in, and then the engine is pulling it in on a different level. There's never 100% right or wrong, I guess, of testing, except for the results we get and our way of thinking about it after we've tested something. Because you'll have 10 guys and you're going to have 10 different conclusions, fellas. One guy would say that doesn't make any sense, and another guy's going to be thinking you're setting the world on fire. So that's what makes the world tick. Everybody has different ways of doing stuff. My ways are the way they are because this is all I have. If I had fancy equipment, then maybe it would be different. And then again, maybe if I had fancy equipment, we wouldn't be going as fast as we're going with these cars, because I'd be taking easy steps and maybe letting numbers mislead me. So that's where I'm at with this kind of stuff, fellas. I hope it makes sense. And just to give you a little bit of my input, my thoughts on this. And I don't want to wear you out with this intake. It's just I had a few, a couple questions and then a couple of opinions. And that's always good, because that keeps people's mind wondering about things. And as long as we're thinking about things, well, that's how you learn. You can learn the easy way, the hard way, or no way. I've always said that. You guys heard me say that in other videos if you follow me. That's just life in general. But we're going to see what we wind up with when this is all done. But I don't want to keep showing the same thing over and over with this. So I'm going to try to knock a little bit more work out of this intake and then show you more 3/4 of the way finished, or maybe more. And then we're going to compare what I've done with this intake to another intake that's a twin to the one I'm working on. I have 2 of these intakes, fellas. So you're like, how are you going to do that, Terry? I have 2. So we're going to compare the one that I'm working and modifying, and then we're going to put the stock intake up here. Well, it's almost stock. I started to work on that a few years ago too, but it's still stock. I just started to do some runner work as well before it maxing it. But that's where we're at with this, fellas. So with that, I want to thank you guys for being interested in this and taking time out of your day to watch. And I can't tell you enough how much it means to me that you guys are so supportive of my channel. So with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and subscribing, that means the world to me, guys. I'm almost at 1,000 people, and to think that 1,000 people like what I do and support me like that, how much could you ask for? But with that, I'm gonna try to get a little bit of work done here and go in the house. Today was my birthday. What better way to spend your birthday than porting things? Yeah, I was porting finishing up LS heads. Now I'm back on the intake. So it's been a little bit busy, fellas. So with that, thank you, everybody, and God bless you.